Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. A real woman, a godly woman, is not out here throwing her pearls to swine. She doesn't speak everything she knows. She doesn't share everything she feels. She doesn't expose everything she dreams, because not every man is worthy of access to what's sacred. This ain't about arrogance. It's about discernment. Listen closely. The moment you share your soul with the wrong man, you give him the power to shape it, to shake it, or worse, to break it. So if you're watching this right now, this ain't just another motivational speech. This is a blueprint. This is a warning, and this is a wake-up call to every woman who's ever been hurt for giving too much too soon to someone who didn't deserve it. Stay with me till the end, because what I'm about to share could protect your peace, guard your future, and restore your worth. A godly woman moves different. She knows something most people overlook. Not everything sacred should be shared. Not everything holy needs to be spoken out loud. See, there's power in mystery. There's strength in restraint. And a woman who understands this, she becomes untouchable. Look, we live in a world that's obsessed with exposure, oversharing, overtalking, revealing too much too fast. But a godly woman, she doesn't live by the world's code. She doesn't hand out pieces of herself just because a man shows up with a smooth tongue and a charming smile. No, she's governed by wisdom, not emotion. She knows that what is sacred must be protected. Some women think love means giving everything, your time, your thoughts, your secrets, your history, your fears, your dreams, all at once. But let me tell you something. Just because someone asks for access doesn't mean they deserve it. Just because a man is present doesn't mean he's prepared. A godly woman understands that not every man is equipped to carry the weight of what's hidden in her heart. So she guards it, not out of fear, but out of respect. Respect for herself and respect for the sacred nature of her spirit. When you share what's sacred with someone who hasn't proven they can be trusted, you don't just risk being misunderstood, you risk being mishandled. That's the danger. That's what breaks so many women, giving too much of their truth to a man who hasn't earned a seat at that table. But a godly woman, she's not desperate for connection. She's not lonely to the point of self-betrayal. She walks with a quiet strength. She doesn't need to be known to feel valuable. She doesn't need constant validation to feel worthy. She knows that her value isn't found in what she shares, it's found in what she with. And when she does choose to share, it's not because she's pressured. It's not because she's being emotionally manipulated. It's because she's discerned that the man in front of her has depth, that he listens with intention, that he honors what she says and protects what she shows. Until then, her silence is louder than any words. Her quiet presence speaks volumes. Let me give it to you straight. Sacred boundaries are not about building walls. They're about creating filters. Filters that separate the worthy from the unworthy. A godly woman doesn't hide who she is, but she doesn't give it away either. She reveals her soul like a slow sunrise. Gradual, intentional, and only to those who stay long enough to see it. And here's the truth nobody wants to say. When a woman holds back what's sacred, it doesn't make her cold, it makes her wise. You see, foolishness shares everything too fast. Wisdom waits. And a godly woman, she's got wisdom written all over her. She doesn't chase understanding, she walks in it. She doesn't beg to be loved, she embodies love. She doesn't reveal her heart for sport, she guards it with honor. Because she knows something vital. Once something sacred is exposed to the wrong spirit, it loses power. It becomes common. It gets trampled on. And she refuses to let that happen. You want to know why some women never recover? Because they let the wrong man touch their soul. Not their body, their soul. And the damage done there, that's the kind that lingers. That's the kind that builds walls, that fosters bitterness, that silences laughter. But the woman who guards what's sacred, she walks with a different grace. She may not speak much, but everything she does say carries weight. Her yes means yes, her no means no, and her silence, it's a whole sermon. She doesn't spill her heart at the first sign of affection. She doesn't rush intimacy. She doesn't trade her spirit for companionship, because she's not trying to impress a man. She's living to protect her peace. And let me tell you, that kind of woman, she can't be manipulated. You can't use her. You can't break her. You can't get her to give up her crown for a counterfeit connection. She knows her worth, and she knows that silence is one of her greatest weapons. So when a man comes around asking questions, seeking access, fishing for vulnerability, she doesn't flinch. She listens. She watches and she discerns. She doesn't speak until she senses safety. She doesn't reveal until she sees consistency. She doesn't commit until she sees character. That's sacred, that's holy. That's the walk of a woman who understands that some things were never meant to be shared lightly. Not every man is qualified for your truth. Not every man is equipped to hold your pain. Not every man is worthy of your hidden places. So she waits, not because she's unsure of her value, but because she's certain of it. And that certainty, that spiritual confidence, that's what makes her rare. And rare? Rare is powerful. Rare can't be replicated. Rare can't be rushed. She knows what to protect because she knows who she is. And that's why she never shares what's sacred with a man who hasn't earned the right to see it. Privacy is power. And a godly woman knows this better than anyone. She understands that the most valuable parts of her life don't belong in everyone's hands or in everyone's ears. In a world where people wear their lives on display, she walks a different path. She's not hiding. She's honoring. There's a difference. The world may tell her, if you don't share, you're secretive, you're cold, you're not open. But she's not trying to please the world. She's protecting what God placed inside of her. Because the more you expose, the more people feel entitled to your life. And she knows what people feel entitled to, they eventually stop respecting. So she chooses the path of quiet strength. She doesn't have to broadcast every move. She doesn't have to post every moment. She doesn't have to explain every decision. Why? Because her identity is not built on external validation. It's built on internal conviction. She's not private because she's weak. She's private because she's strong enough not to need attention to feel alive. She doesn't crave applause. She craves alignment. She's not out here chasing visibility. She's guarding her vision. When you live out loud for the wrong reasons, you invite noise that distorts your focus. You start confusing claps for confirmation. And before you know it, your identity is wrapped up in opinions, in likes, in affirmations from people who don't even know you deeply. But a godly woman, she refuses to let the world edit her story. She's not sharing every step because she understands the value of sacred progression. Some things grow best in silence. Some prayers are answered in the dark. And some seasons are meant to be walked through with God alone, not a cheering section. She knows there's power in the unseen, power in the unknown. When people don't know what you're doing, they can't sabotage it. When they don't know your next move, they can't manipulate it. When they don't know your heart, they can't weaponize it. That's wisdom. She keeps certain things to herself, not out of fear, but out of intention. She doesn't need to speak on everything she's working on. Not every goal needs an announcement. Not every relationship needs exposure. She lets her growth speak for itself. She lets her peace do the talking. She understands that not everything valuable is meant to be visible. Some blessings are so sacred they lose their power the moment they're put on display. So she moves in silence, not because she's hiding from the world, but because she's hiding something within her, something precious, something divine, something the world can't handle carelessly. And when it comes to men, she's even more intentional. She doesn't tell a man everything she feels just because he asks. She doesn't break herself open just because he shows interest. Interest isn't investment. Presence isn't proof. Consistency is what she watches for, not charm. Integrity is what she listens for, not flattery. She's not withholding to play games. She's guarding to protect peace. Because once you give a man access to your private world without discernment, you give him power over parts of you he might not be mature enough to handle. So she watches, she studies, she listens, and most of all, she prays. Because her privacy is not just a habit, it's a weapon. It protects her spirit. It shields her from manipulation. It keeps her centered in a world that's constantly trying to pull her off course. A godly woman knows the difference between privacy and secrecy. Secrecy hides from shame. Privacy hides in wisdom. She's not ashamed of her journey, but she's not displaying it like a trophy either. Some things are still in process. Some wounds are still healing. Some blessings are still blooming. And she refuses to share them prematurely. She knows that people don't always celebrate what they don't understand, and sometimes what they can't understand, they try to tear down. So she protects her peace by keeping her life in the hands of the one who gave it to her, not in the mouths of those who only want to judge it. She's not available to everyone. She's not accessible to every man who shows up with a smile. Her boundaries are tight. Her energy is sacred. Her presence is earned. And her story? That's not a free-for-all. It's a legacy in the making. She walks in that, boldly, quietly, powerfully. And the man who's meant for her, he won't be confused by her privacy. He'll honor it. He'll earn his way into her trust, not force it. He'll recognize that when a woman protects her life, she's not being cold, she's being called. Called to purpose, called to peace, called to walk with a standard. That's why she never gives away what's private too soon, because once it's out, you can't take it back. And not everyone is worthy of seeing what took years to build in silence. So she stays grounded, she stays silent, she stays wise, because privacy to her isn't just a preference, it's power. A godly woman understands that emotions are real, but they are not always right. She knows that just because she feels something doesn't mean she should say it. Just because she's hurt doesn't mean she has to bleed in front of everyone. And just because she's angry doesn't mean she needs to explode. That's what separates her from the rest. Emotional discipline. She's not cold. She's not numb. She feels everything deeply. But she has learned that maturity is not about suppressing emotions. It's about mastering them. It's about learning how to carry the weight of your heart without dropping it on someone who didn't earn your vulnerability. There's a quiet power in that. In today's world, we're told to express ourselves, to let it all out, to speak our truth. And while there's value in honesty, there's also wisdom in restraint. A godly woman doesn't use her emotions as weapons. She doesn't throw words around just because she's overwhelmed. She doesn't let every feeling turn into a reaction. She pauses, she breathes, she prays, because she knows that the way she responds in emotional moments will define her relationships, her peace, and her direction. And when it comes to men, she's especially careful. She doesn't pour her soul out to a man just because he asks, or because he's there, or because he says the right things in the right moment. She's not here for temporary comfort. She's focused on lasting alignment. She sees what happens when you lead with emotion in the wrong hands. She's learned that vulnerability without discernment is dangerous. You can end up giving the deepest parts of yourself to someone who hasn't earned the right to carry them, and then when they mishandle it, you're left broken, blaming yourself for being too much. You weren't too much. You just gave too much too soon. That's why she doesn't overshare. She doesn't cry to every man. She doesn't reveal the scars on her soul to someone who hasn't shown consistency, character, or care. She waits. Not because she's afraid to feel, but because she's learned to filter her feelings through wisdom. You don't hand your emotional truth to someone still learning how to respect your silence. She knows emotions are powerful. They can heal or they can hurt. They can build trust or they can breed confusion. So she handles hers like precious gems, rare, real, and not for everyone to touch. And in moments where she's tempted to lash out, to argue, to defend herself, she chooses silence, not weakness, restraint. Because she's not trying to win every argument. She's trying to win the war for her peace. And not every emotion deserves a stage. Some need to be taken to prayer, not to a person. Some things need to be processed in stillness, not performed in chaos. She's in the room. She understands that a woman who can control her emotions holds a kind of power that can't be shaken, a power that draws the right kind of people and repels the wrong ones. Because the wrong man wants access to your emotions so he can control you with them. But the right one, he respects the fact that you can sit in your feelings without letting them drive the conversation. A godly woman doesn't run from her emotions. She owns them, but she doesn't let them own her. She can say, "I'm hurt," without acting out. She can say, "I need space," without ghosting. She can feel the fire inside and still walk with grace. That's strength. It takes strength to cry behind closed doors and still show up in purpose. It takes strength to be misunderstood and not explain yourself. It takes strength to feel deeply and still choose discipline. But she chooses it daily because she knows emotions can be beautiful, but if left unchecked, they lead you into situations that your soul was never meant to carry. She's not interested in being the loudest. She's focused on being the most aligned. She's not chasing someone to see her heart. She's waiting for someone who can handle it. So she keeps her emotional world sacred. She doesn't unleash her pain on every man who walks in. She doesn't tell her whole story to someone just because he's listening. She watches. She studies. She lets time speak. Because real emotions don't need to be rushed, they need to be respected. She's learned that the man who is truly worthy of her will create a space safe enough for her to open up slowly. Not a space that pressures, manipulates, or demands, but one that honors the process. She stays grounded in her discipline. She protects her heart by leading it, not letting it lead her. Because her emotions are sacred and not everyone deserves to know how deeply she feels. That's the power of a godly woman. She can cry and still be strong. She can love and still have boundaries. She can feel and still walk in wisdom. And that's why she'd never give a man access to her emotional core without discernment, because her heart is a garden, not a playground. A godly woman guards her spiritual life like a sacred treasure, because to her it is. It's not for display, it's not for approval, and it's certainly not up for debate. Her relationship with the divine is the foundation of who she is. It guides her steps, sharpens her discernment, and gives her a peace that no man can offer or take away. That knows one thing for sure: not every man deserves to be invited into the sacred space where she meets her creator. That space is holy. That space is quiet. That space is where she hears clarity in the middle of chaos, strength in the middle of struggle, and truth in the middle of confusion. And if a man doesn't understand the value of that space, he doesn't deserve to be near it. She doesn't preach her convictions to prove she's spiritual. She lives them quietly, powerfully, with grace. She doesn't announce her prayer life. She just walks in a way that makes people feel the presence of something deeper, something unshakable when they're around her. And when it comes to men, she doesn't overshare that part of her journey. She knows that some things aren't meant to be revealed. They're meant to be protected. A man can mimic interest in your spirit just to gain access to your life. He can speak the language, say the right words, play the role, but if his heart isn't aligned, it will show with time. That's why she doesn't rush to tell him how she prays, how she fasts, what dreams she's had, or what visions have stirred her soul. She watches, she listens, she waits. She understands that her connection to something greater than herself isn't a strategy to attract a man. It's her lifeline. And no one should be able to touch that just because they showed up. That's earned through trust, through consistency, through spiritual maturity. Women fall into the trap of exposing their entire spiritual walk to a man too early, hoping he'll see the depth and match it. But what she knows is this: spiritual compatibility isn't proven by conversation, it's revealed through action. A man who truly walks in purpose won't just talk about the divine, he'll walk in alignment with it. You'll see it in the way he leads, loves, listens, and lives. That's why she doesn't let her spiritual hunger be manipulated. She doesn't let loneliness or desire push her into faith-flavored relationships that have no spiritual backbone. She refuses to let her sacred space become a performance stage for someone who only wants to impress her with words and no depth. When she prays, she's not praying for a man. She's praying for alignment, for wisdom, for peace. She's not obsessed with finding someone. She's obsessed with staying connected to her source, because she knows if she loses that, she loses herself, and no relationship is worth that. Her spiritual life is what gives her patience when things take longer than expected. It's what gives her peace when everything around her is falling apart. It's what helps her forgive when she's been betrayed. It's what helps her stay grounded when emotions run wild. That's not something she's willing to compromise, not for comfort, not for love, not for potential. There's a stillness in her soul because of it. She walks into rooms and doesn't feel the need to prove her worth. She's already approved. She walks away from disrespect, not because she's cold, but because she knows she was never created to beg for love. That's what spiritual grounding does. It reminds her of her value when the world tries to make her forget. And when a man comes into her life, she doesn't automatically include him in that part of her. She doesn't start sending him devotionals or inviting him into her sacred moments. She lets time do the talking. She observes how he responds to silence, how he handles her boundaries, how he respects the pace of her trust. Because if a man doesn't understand that her spirit comes before her smile, he's not ready for her. A godly woman doesn't want to be worshipped. She wants to be understood. She doesn't need a man to lead her to something she already walks with daily. What she needs is someone who honors the presence she carries. Someone who adds to it, not disrupts it. Someone who knows that her spirit isn't something he gets to shape. It's something he needs to respect. So she keeps her spiritual life hidden from the eyes that only want to look, not see, from the ears that want to hear but not understand, from the hearts that want to take but not build, because that part of her is not for show, it's for the sacred. She doesn't need validation from a man about how close she is to the divine. She already knows. Her peace tells her. Her resilience tells her. Her strength in silence tells her. And that's why she never shares her spiritual life with a man prematurely, because a godly woman knows some things are too holy to be handled by human hands that don't fear the weight of what they're touching. A godly woman does not hand over the story of her past to just any man. She knows that her past is not some open book waiting to be flipped through by curious hands or judgmental eyes. It's a story filled with wounds and wisdom, pain and purpose, battles and breakthroughs. And she understands one truth deeply: not everyone is worthy of hearing it. She's been through things that could have broken her, things she had to cry through in silence when nobody was there to help her up. She's made mistakes, she's been betrayed, she's had her trust shattered and her heart mishandled. She's walked through seasons of shame, of confusion, of regret, but she came out the other side, not bitter, not broken, but stronger, wiser, softer in heart, but sharper in spirit. And because she's healed, she's not in a rush to bleed all over someone just because he's interested. She doesn't dump her story at a man's feet, hoping he'll fix her, or worse, pity her. She's already done the work. She already faced her demons. She already walked through the fire, and now she carries her scars with dignity, not desperation. She knows that vulnerability is powerful, but only when it's placed in the right hands. So she watches how a man listens before she ever lets him hear the parts of her story that cost her tears. She observes how he handles pressure, how he respects silence, how he talks about others, because she knows that if a man gossips about other people's pain, he'll mishandle hers too. There was a time when she gave too much too soon. When she told someone everything, hoping they'd understand, but instead they used it against her, or they judged her, or they tried to fix her, like she was a project instead of a person. That moment changed her. It made her realize your past is sacred, not because it defines you, but because you survived it. She doesn't hide her story out of shame. She protects it out of wisdom. She understands that not every man who walks into her life is sent to carry the weight of her testimony. Some are just tourists, curious, temporary, lacking the depth to understand what it took to become the woman she is now. And for those men, she offers a smile, a kind word, but not her story, not her trauma, not the night she cried herself to sleep, not the abuse, not the heartbreak, not the self-doubt that once lived in her chest like a storm that doesn't belong to just anyone. When she does share it, she does so with intention, not to bond through pain, but to reveal strength, not to trauma dump, but to testify. She doesn't glorify her wounds. She simply shows how they healed. But before she shares that, she needs to see that the man before her has the capacity to hold it, not to fix it, not to carry it, but to respect it, to listen without trying to be the hero, to hear her without needing to respond with a solution. She doesn't use her past as a tool to gain sympathy or affection. She doesn't need emotional shortcuts. She knows that real intimacy is built on trust, not tragedy. So when a man asks about her past, she doesn't rush. She gives pieces, not the whole. Not because she's hiding, but because she's protecting. If he stays, if he listens, if he proves over time that he's consistent, not perfect, but present, then maybe she'll share more. But never too fast, never all at once. Because the right man will never need her to pour her pain out just to prove she's real. The right man will create a space so safe, so steady, so solid that she won't have to be guarded. She'll just feel peace. And in that peace, she'll begin to share. Not out of pressure, not out of fear of losing him, but because she knows this one's different. This one sees me, not just my story. A godly woman doesn't let her trauma define her, and she refuses to let it become currency in a relationship. She's not trying to earn love through pain. She's already loved by the one who never left her in the valley, the one who gave her the strength to rise again. So when it comes to her past, she stands tall. She doesn't run from it. She doesn't deny it, but she also doesn't give it away like spare change. She knows it cost her everything to overcome it. And if a man can't see the value in that, he has no business asking for access. She doesn't need a man to complete her healing. She just needs one who won't reopen the wounds she's already worked so hard to close. A godly woman understands that her financial life is not a topic for casual conversation or shallow relationships. She's worked too hard, sacrificed too much, and prayed through too many storms to carelessly share the details of her money, her assets, or her vision for financial legacy with a man who hasn't proven he can be trusted with it. She knows that money, while not everything, is a tool of stewardship, discipline, and wisdom, and she protects that area of her life with fierce discretion. She does not believe in impressing a man with what she owns or what she earns. She is not flashing paychecks or dangling her savings account to seem valuable. Her worth doesn't come from her bank balance. It comes from her character. She has learned that if a man only values her because of what she can bring to the table financially, then he's not a partner, he's a parasite. There's a quiet power in the way she handles her finances. You won't hear her bragging about her business deals, investments, or saving strategies. She doesn't need applause, she needs peace. And peace doesn't come from exposing her financial position to someone who might use it as leverage, expectation, or manipulation. She's seen what happens when you give the wrong man too much access too soon. She's seen women fund lifestyles they couldn't afford, thinking love required sacrifice when it was actually being exploited. She's not bitter. She's better. She's learned. And now she moves wisely, calculated, intentional, not secretive out of fear, but selective out of wisdom. A godly woman never forgets that financial transparency is a privilege, not a right. It's something a man earns, not something he's entitled to. She doesn't discuss her income casually over dinner. She doesn't explain her long-term wealth goals during early conversations. She doesn't offer up her credit score or reveal how many properties she owns. Why? Because she knows how quickly admiration can turn into entitlement. How praise can turn into pressure, how love can turn into control when money enters the conversation too early. She watches how a man handles his own responsibilities. She watches how he treats money, whether he respects it or wastes it. She listens when he talks about success, not to be impressed, but to understand his mindset. Is he building or just pretending? Is he generous or reckless? Is he planning for the future or living for the weekend? Because a man's relationship with money reveals his relationship with discipline. And she's not about to tie her financial future to someone who can't control his impulses or plan beyond Friday night. She needs to know he's not just financially stable, he's financially mature. And until she sees that, her wealth plans remain protected. She's not chasing a man for money. And she's not inviting a man into hers just because he shows affection. She's not afraid of being the breadwinner, but she's not about to play savior either. She doesn't fund potential. She doesn't finance fantasies. She builds with someone who can match her effort, her vision, and her mindset. There's a strength in a woman who can earn, save, invest, and grow, but still walk with humility. She's not looking to control a man with her financial power, but she won't be controlled either. She's looking for alignment, partnership, someone who understands that financial intimacy is as sacred as emotional and spiritual connection. It's not a conversation you have with just anyone. It's a covenant built through trust, consistency, and shared values. If a man asks too quickly about her income, she sees it as a red flag. If he becomes uncomfortable when he realizes she's financially secure, she knows he's not the one. Because a real man is not intimidated by her success, he's inspired by it. He doesn't compete with her, he collaborates. He doesn't see her money as a threat, he sees her as a teammate in a shared vision of abundance, purpose, and legacy. Pamela, a godly woman, isn't just thinking about today, she's thinking about generations. She's planting seeds for children she hasn't even met. She's building a life of discipline that speaks louder than any designer label. She knows how to manage, how to multiply, and how to move in silence. So when it comes to money, she's not loud, she's locked in. And if a man wants to be a part of that life, he'll have to earn her trust brick by brick. Because she refuses to build an empire with someone who brings chaos instead of clarity, confusion instead of consistency. She's seen too many women hand over financial control in the name of love, only to lose their identity in the process. She won't be one of them. Her money is managed, her plans are set, and her heart is guarded, not because she's hard, but because she's wise. And wisdom has taught her this: love without boundaries is dangerous. And finances without discernment, even more so. A godly woman is not simply defined by what she has, but by who she is. She's a woman of depth, strength, wisdom, and purpose. She doesn't give pieces of herself to just anyone. She offers her heart only to those who are worthy of it. She doesn't rush to share her story, her vulnerabilities, or her plans, because she knows the weight of these gifts and the responsibility that comes with them. She protects her peace, her past, and her financial future with discernment and grace. She's not afraid of solitude because she understands that being alone is often where the greatest growth occurs. She knows that the right person will complement her, not complete her, and that any relationship worth having is one built on mutual respect, trust, and shared values. So if you are a man and you are blessed enough to earn the trust of a godly woman, understand that you are being entrusted with something precious. She will share with you her heart, her story, and her dreams, but only when she sees that you can carry them with care. She will give you access to her life, but never at the cost of her peace. She will partner with you, but not at the expense of her identity. And if you are a woman, remember this: you are worthy of the same level of respect. You are worthy of guarding your heart, your past, your plans, and your future until you find someone who is strong enough to honor and protect all that you are. A godly woman doesn't settle for less than the best, not out of arrogance, but out of wisdom. She knows that she is rare, and so is the man who will stand beside her. This is not about playing games. This is about building a life based on trust, mutual growth, and a deep, unwavering commitment to each other's well-being. A godly woman's love is not freely given, it is earned, cherished, and protected. So, to all the women out there, hold your head high, know your worth, and never, ever compromise it for someone who isn't willing to treat you like the treasure that you are.